نانو راديو دمص إيرترا DC EU راديو دمص إيرترا DC كرام قدام بمنقد مربب حبريتا اب voiceoferitrea.com ويون بمنقد يوتيوب تقمط واشنطن دي سن كبابيان كمون نملع علم يفنو
كبرات تخطاتلتن سمعتون راديونا كما يكنيكم كبدمصخم صخنت راديو دمص إيرترا بمجمريا رحوس كنيات نتانت هاجرنا إيرترا يقبرركم كمون نقول لهنا يوهانا النابلكو نايلم قدام قنبت إسران سرستان 2026 مسانا رأوضيننا أنه نكتالكم دما بتحتنا يعدم قدامي دينا كاب كتما أسمرا إريترا قال أي إيكونومي بروجكت جدسي أو إريترا كاب Eritrean-insight كان أنت تعالى لكون إيو أمانكم رباتنا استقلال يملكتان حبرتان كمون عخاتكم أذنا لعذبنا موزيقان أبدالينا أنونا أبزي نايلو معانتم رباتنا مسانا حبيركم كتصنحو ندا تلابخو سناي ملكتتان كخونركم بسم بوردم جيترا DC منيركم سناي مكتتال
ينافقكي عاد ينافقكي عاد
كابزي كاب واشنطن DC راديو دمص إيرترا زمحلالف زلو مدباتكم تكاتاتلو زلوهم كبرات سمعتنا بمقتل زينا كاب كتما أسمرا عنه
أبومبر الأولوي بايتو السودان جنرال عبد الفاتح البرهان بريزيدنت ريبابليك جاد محمد إدريس دبي إتنو بريزيدنت هندي دروبادي مورمون بريزيدنت ريبابليك مالاوي بروفيسور آرتور بيتر موتاريكان بمغنيات مبسالاسان حموشان عامد سنبل ناتزنت بسبن منكستن إيرترا نيوهانا ملغت سريدهم اتم مرحتي بسمهم بسم هزباتاتهم من منكستاتهم من أبسدد وملغتي نبريزيدنت إساياس مولد عنان أسالة أسرحن نإيرتران هزبان دما سلامن راهوان دحر مناي مس إيرترا كلت أو زمدناتاتن معزاز زلوهم دليت قليصهم أبومبر الأولى بايتو السودان جنرال عبد الفاتح البرهان وثقوا أبونغو إيرتران سودان نزلو دلدلون عميقون حونة أو زمدنا مركوس بمكبر نربحتات كلتيو هزبتات بزسمر أقباب أبستفلالي مريات بزبلت أنا من معبالو حقنيا دليت هاجرو الرقاقيتهم أب زبادو بويك إيه بحري تنبلنا تنت باستفلالي مدبات أب زغط زلال زلو بدرجان وزبا مأكل دنكاليا بعصر حموشتا جنبوت أب أدي بدرجان وزبا الرعتا بعصر تشدشا جنبوت أب تيعو بدرجان وزبا دبوب دنكاليا دما بأسرع جنبوت أب حرسيلي تتنبيلهم الدوم برعوا هاريت شماقل بعلات ويزرو هوا محمد نيرينا بسحب التحبريتا مبل سلاسان حموشن عمتنا تنت إيرترا بدمكات متزنبال أب موداتا ورحت الري كوميتاتات بمقام مدلوات كاير متنحو بمغلاص نصنت نممصن نمعقابن نستحلفه غعزون زسكمو حلفنتن بززخاخر አገባብ ይባል ከም ዘሎ ገሊጻም ትምደባት ሰሚናራት ንህዝብን ተማሃሮን አበ ወፍሪ ደንካላ ዘተኮረ መደብ ዋርሳ ንስራሕተኛታት ተካላት መንግስቲ ስፖርታዊ ውድድራትን ከመውዳታትን ከም ዘጠቃለል በመሐባር በደረጃ ዞባዝ ተወደበ ወጋው ጽንብል በ13 ግንቦት አበ ከተማ ዓሰብ ከም ዝካየድ ሓቢራም ኣብ ዕለት ንትርጉምን ርዝነትና ጽነት ዝገልጽ ነጥበባዊ መሰናዶታት ከምውን መሬት ወታደራዊ ሰልፊ ከም ዘህልውን አረጋግጣም መደባት በዓልና ጽነት ኣብ ከተማ ዓሰብ ካብ 23 ክሳብ 26 ግንቦት ኣብ ቀጽሪ ራስ ኮምቦ ብዝካየድ ፌስቲቫል ደሚቁ ከም ዝغني በመሐባር ድማ እቲ መሰናዶታት 10 ጉጅለታት ባህሊ ዝሳተፉ ባህላዊ መሬት ስላው መሬት ከምውን መሬት ድኮና አባይትን ቁሸት መነባብሮን ከም ዘጠቃለለ አፍሪጣም ወይዘሮ ሃዋ ኣብ መወዳታ መደባት በዓልና ጽነት ዝያዳ ሓላፍነት ብዘሰክምን ብዘስተምረን መሰናዶታት ተሰንዩ ክካየድ በተሓደ ኣብ መንእስያት ጽልዋ ዝሕድርን ምስ ሕሉፍ ታሪኽ ዘላልን ክኸውን ድማ በተኻለ ተቃኒዩ ከም ዘሎ አብርሃም ኣብ ዞባ ሓንሰባ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ናይ ናጽነት ዓመታት መንግስቲ ኤርትራ ብዘውፅኦ መደብ ልዕሊ 2 ቢልዮን ናቕፋ ዓበይቲ ልምዓታዊ ንጥፈታት ከም እተዓመ ዋና ዳይሬክተር ክፍለ ህንፃዊ ልምዓት ኣቶ ተኸስተ ኣስገዶም ሓቢሮም እቲ መነባብሮ ህዝቢ ንምምሕያሽን ምዕሩይ ዝርግሕን ምርግጋጽን ዝተሰላሰለ መደባት ህንፀት ትካላት ማሕበራዊ ኣገልግሎትን ዲጋታትን ምድላው ውጥን ምዕባለ ከተማታት ምስራሕ ጽርግያታትን ካልእን ከም ዘጠቓልል ኣረድዮም በዚ መሰረት ብጠቕላላ ልዕሊ 40 ሚልዮን ሜትሮ ኩቦ ማይ ናይ መሓዝ ዓቕሚ ዘለወን 141 ዲጋታት 191 ትካላት ትምህርትን 41 ትካላት ጥዕናን ክህነጻ ከለዋ ኣብ ልዕሊ 26000 ሄክታር ቅየሳዊ ስራሓት ተኻይዱ ከምኡውን ልዕሊ 2200 ኪሎ ሜትር ናይ ሓመድ ጽርግያ ተዋዲዱ ብዘይካዚ ኣብ ውሽጢ ከተማ ከረን 22 ኪሎ ሜትር ናይ ቅጥራን ጽርግያ ክስራሕ ከሎ ምስ ኩለን ዞባታት ዘራኽብ ናይ ሙሩጽ ሓመድ ጽርግያታት ተሰሪሖም ነቲ መደብ ኣብ ምዕዋት ኩለን ኣካላት መንግስቲ ብሓፈሻ ከም ድማ ብፍላይ ንዝገበረ ኣበርክቶ ዝመጎሰ ኣቶ ተኸስተ ኣብ መጻኢ ብዝተዋሃደ ጻዕሪ ዝዓበየ መደባት ንምስልሳል ዝሕግዝ ሙያዊ ዓቕሚ ተደሊቡ ከም ዘሎ ሓቢሮም ዋና ዳይሬክተር ክፍለ ህንፃዊ ልምዓት ኣቶ ተኸስተ ኣስገዶም ኣብ መወዳእታ እቲ ዝተጠቕሰ መደባት ብምክትታል ክፍሊ ህንፃዊ ልምዓት ዝተተግበረ ጥራይ ምዃኑ ብምሕባር ብሓፈሻ ዝተሰላሰለ መደባት ልምዓት ተዓጻጻፊ ከም ዝኾነ ኣብሪሆም ኣብ ዞባ ሞልቂ ኣብ ሃገራዊ መርመራ ሻምናይ ክፍሊ ዓመተ ትምህርቲ 2024-2025 ብሉጽ ውጽኢት ንዘመዝገቡ 18 ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ዝርከብዎም 63 ተምሃሮ ሽልማት ታንፌዳ ተዓዲሎም ንዕውታት ተምሃሮ ዝወሃብ ሽልማት ቅዱስ ቅኒ ብምፍጣር ብሉጻትን ተወዳደርትን ተምሃሮ ኣብ ምኹስኳስ ኣበርክቶ ይገብር ከም ዘሎ ዝሓበረ ሓላፊ ሃማመት ኣብቲ ዞባ መንእሰይ ሓይሊ ኣብ ምሕረት ኣብ ዕውታት ተምሃሮ ንዘመዝገቡ ዓወት ብምዕቃብ ንዝበለጸ ውጽኢት ጽዕሩ ተማሕጺኖም ኣማሓዳሪኑ ዞባ ሞልቂ ኣቶ ዘርኣይ በርሀ ኣብ መወዳእታ ተረኺቡ ዘሎ ዓወት ውጽኢት ሓያል ስራሕን ዱልዱል ስሉሳዊ ዝምድናን ምዃኑ ብምብራህ ኣብ ሃገራዊ መርመራ 12 ክፍሊ ክድገም ኣዘኻኺሮም እዚ ከምዚ ኢሉ እንከሎ ካብ 1 ክሳብ 3 ኣዋርሕ ብሞያ ክስልጥኑ ዝጸንሑ 100 መንእሰያት ከም ተመረቑ ወኪል ኤሪና ሓቢሮም ኣሜሪካ ንጽላት ነዳድን ፋይናንስን ኢራን ኢላማ ዝገበረ ሓድሽ እገዳ ከም ዘጽደቐት ኣፍሊጣ እዚ ሓድሽ እገዳ ኣብ ምጉዕዓዝን መሸጣን ፍርያት ነዳዲ ኢራን ብቐጥታን ብተዘዋዋርን ኢድ ከም ዘለዎም ንዝገለጸቶም 19 መራኸብን 50 ውልቀ ሰባት ትካላትን የጠቓልል እዞም ዝተኣገዱ ወገናት ምስ ትካላት ኣሜሪካ ንግዳዊ ንጥፈታት ከየካይዱ ክኽልከሉ ከምኡውን ንዋዮም ክድስክል ምዃኑ ቤት ጽሕፈት ግምጃ ኣሜሪካ ኣፍሊጡሎም ጸሓፍቲ ቤት ጽሕፈት ስኮት ቤሰንት ኣብ ዝሃቦ መግለጺ እቲ ስጉምቲ ኢራን ካብ መሸጣ ነዳዲ ንእትረኽቦ ኣታዊታት ብምግታእ ኣብ ዞባ ማእከላይ ምብራቕ ንዝንቀሳቐሱ ዕጡቓት ንእትገብሮ ፋይናንሳዊ ደገፍ ንምብታኽ ዝዓለመ ምዃኑ ኣነጺሩሎም ኣሜሪካ ኣብ ልዕሊ ኢራን እገዳ ከተጸድቕ ናይ ፈለማ ከም ዘይኮነ ዝሕብሩ ጸብጻባት እቲ ስጉምቲ ኣብ ልዕሊ ቁጠባት ሃገር ኣሉታዊ ሳዕቤናት ይኸትል ከም ዘሎ የረድኦም ብዘይካዚ እቲ እገዳ ኣብ መንጎ ክልቲአን ሃገራት ተኸሲቱ ዘሎ ወጥሪ ንምህዳእ ንዝካየድ ዘሎ ዲፕሎማስያዊ ጻዕርታት ብኣሉታ ዝጸሉ ከም ዝኾነ እዮም ምስቲ ጉዳይ ቅርበት ዘለዎም ወገናት ዝሕብሮም እዚ ከምዚ ኢሉ እንከሎ ሓለዋ ሰውራ ኢራን ኣሜሪካን እስራኤልን ኣብ ልዕሊ ሃገሩ ዳግማይ መጥቃዕቲ ምስ ዘካይዳ እቲ ግጭት ኪኑ ዞባ ማእከላይ ምብራቕ ከም ዝልሕም ኣጠንቂቖም እዚ መጠንቀቕታ ዝተዋህበ ፕረዚደንት ትራምፕ ኢራን ኣብ ዝመጽእ 2-3 መዓልታት ኣብ ስምምዕ ምስ ዘይትበጽሕ ኣብ ልዕሊያ ወተሃደራዊ ስጉምቲ ከም ዝወስድ ኣብ ዝሕብረሉ ዘሎ እዋን እዩ ኣብ ማሕበራዊ መራኸቢታት ኣብ ዝዘርግሖ ጽሑፍ ፕረዚደንት ትራምፕ መራሕቲ ቀጠር ሱዑድያን ሕቡራት ኢማራት ዓረብን ብዘቕረብዎ ምሕጽንታ መሰረት ብ19 ግንቦት ኣብ ልዕሊ ኢራን ክካየድ ተመዲቡ ንዝነበረ መጥቃዕቲ ከም ዘናውሖ ምግላጹ ዝፍለጥ እዩ ብኻልእ ወገን ኣሜሪካ ኣብ ልዕሊ ኢራን ኣብ ዘካየደቶ ወተሃደራዊ ስርሒት 42 ነፈርቲ ከም ዝኸሰረት ሓድሽ ዝወፀ ጸብጻብ ሓቢሮም ኤሮጳዊ ሕብረት ዓሚ ምስ ኣሜሪካን ዝኸተሞ ንግዳዊ ስምምዕ ንምትግባር ኣብ ጊዜያዊ ምርድዳእ በፂሖም እቲ ምርድዳእ ኣብ መንጎ ክልቲኦም ወገናት ተፈጢሩ ዘሎ ንግዳዊ ወጥሪ ንምህዳእ ኣባላት ባይቶን ዲፕሎማሰኛታትን ናይቲ ሕብረት ኣብ ፈረንሳ ን5 ሰዓታት ድሕሪ ዘካየድዎ ዝርርብ ከም ተበጽሐ እዩ ዝግለጽ ዘሎ ኤሮጳዊ ሕብረት ምስ ኣሜሪካን ዝኸተሞ ንግዳዊ ስምምዕ ክሳብ መጀመርያ ናይ ዝመጽእ ወርሓ ሓምለ ብምልኣት ምስ ዘየተግብሮ ዝወጠነ ውሳኽ ቀረጽ ተግባራዊ ከም ዝኸውን ፕረዚደንት ትራምፕ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ሰሙን ምጥንቃቑ ዝዝከር እዩ ፕሬዚደንት ትራምፕ እቲ ሕብረት ነቲ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ዓመት ዝተበጽሐ ስምምዕ ንምትግባር ከም ዘይተበገሰ ብምውቃስ ኣብ ልዕሊ ሰደድ ፍርያቱ ወሲንዎ ንዝነበረ 15 ሚእታዊት ቀረጽ ናብ 25 ሚእታዊት ክብከም ዘብሎ እዩ ዝገልጽ ዘሎ ክልቲኦም ወገናት ዝሓለፈ ዓመት ዝኸተምዎ ስምምዕ ኣሜሪካ ኣብ ልዕሊ እታዊ ፍርያት ኤውሮጳዊ ሕብረት ወሲናቱ ንዝጸንሐት ቀረጽ ናብ 15 ሚእታዊት ከተውርዶ እቲ ሕብረት ከዓ ኣብ ልዕሊ እታዊ ፍርያት ኣሜሪካ ቀረጽ ከየኽፍል ከምኡውን ኣብ ኣሜሪካ ወፍሪ ክገብርን ብኣማይት ቢልዮናት ዶላር ዝግመት ኣጽዋር ክሽምትን ዘጠቓልል ነይሮም እንተኾነ ግና እቲ ውድውን ከም ዘይኮነ ዝጥቀስ ስምምዕ ዛጊት ብምልኣት ከም ዘይተተግበረ ጸብጻባት የረድኦም
يوانا مبر 35 عامت بعدنا ناس نخل حزب إرترا قمت 14 تاريخنا تغيرت منتنا زمسكرت كبر سعله مدبات قنبل بعد واشنطن دي سي كبابيان حمص قنبت 11 سلف مخاين كاب اي سي 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 ما بين باس حاجر إرترا لك 19 المصري جمر ابا في دقين باس حاجر إرترا زقبر استفر علي نطفتات تفارس جميرو تفتح 3 حلقة في غطفل بدحريو مدبات عاد اي سي 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 كساع 3 حلقة كتاب 11 مشت دبلوماسياون نطفتات درار مختد ديتات مصطفى علي العمل زي ما تقربي اجاش عدوماتنا المقبال وقوب نبهلنا نمنتنا زنصبارق قربنا ندميقنا بهلاو خدان لبسنا خدمت بخبر السوق عمتاو نصم بلو بيكنيك نقدام برتع ما يالو سلسوهله نحمل 4 جولاي 4 تمحلالي فلو سنبت قنبت 14 كتشع عبينا موزيكا مريض مفورياتن وناماتن دنصاويان حقوس برهانه قبرلو لافورقي آرون كبر ابن دانيال مانان بموزيكانياتات ودن باي جدون فانيل تعجبهم وحلول ساوند مان كنتم تسنيهم مسارحتاتهم قانيهم غرورهم سحيلهم تداليهم اللو بوتا ECCC 2154 24th place North East Washington DC 20018 صنعتنا وحسنا وعصب على الكنياتنا تنس بدحان متو
What if the next major infrastructure transformation in the Horn of Africa is not happening in Ethiopia, not in Djibouti, but inside Eritrea? Over the past few months, something significant has been quietly developing between Egypt and Eritrea. New agreements, technical cooperation, infrastructure planning, port discussions, energy partnerships. And now, according to regional sources and recent diplomatic developments, Egyptian technical teams are expected to arrive in Eritrea in July, with implementation phases potentially beginning in August, following agreements signed last week between officials from Cairo and Asmara. And this is not just about politics. This could become one of the biggest strategic infrastructure expansion Egypt has attempted in the Horn of Africa. We are talking about irrigation systems, solar-powered agriculture, power modernization, logistics corridors, dams, industrial zones, fisheries, and Red Sea trade routes. Even more interesting, some of Egypt's largest engineering giants may soon become major players inside Eritrea. Companies like Arab contractors, Swedi Electric, and other Egyptian infrastructure firms already operating across East Africa. Tonight, we break down why Egypt is moving aggressively towards Eritrea. What projects may come first? Why Eritrea suddenly matters economically, and how this could reshape power across the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa. Now let's get into why Egypt is turning to Eritrea. For years, Egypt's main focus in the Horn of Africa revolved around one issue, the Nile River. especially the dispute over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. But Cairo's strategy is now expanding beyond water diplomacy. Egypt increasingly sees the Red Sea as a critical zone for trade, maritime security, energy routes, food security, and geopolitical influence. Geographically, Eritrea sits directly in the center of that equation. Eritrea controls some of the most strategic coastline in the entire Red Sea region. Ports like Massawa and Asab are positioned near some of the busiest shipping lanes on Earth. For decades, Eritrea remained economically isolated. But now, regional dynamics are changing. Arab Emirates is expanding influence around the Red Sea. Saudi Arabia is investing heavily in maritime logistics. Turkey is active in Somalia. China already has a base in Djibouti. Egypt does not want to remain absent. And Eritrea offers Cairo something very important, a strategic partner with coastline, geographic leverage, and long-term infrastructure needs. This is why recent meetings between Egyptian and Eritrean officials are no longer focusing only on diplomacy. They are focusing on transportation, industrial cooperation, agriculture, irrigation, renewable energy, and logistics. According to discussions emerging from recent agreements signed last week, Egyptian technical delegations are expected to begin arriving in July to conduct assessments and coordinate implementation phases. Sources connected to regional infrastructure circles indicated that initial implementation activities may begin as early as August. And that timeline matters because it suggests these are no longer theoretical discussions. This is moving into the execution phase. Which Egyptian companies are likely to play the biggest role? The first name that immediately stands out is Arab Contractors. Arab Contractors is one of the largest engineering and construction companies in Africa. The company already operates major projects across Tanzania, Uganda, Egypt, Sudan, and several Gulf states. Most notably, the company became internationally recognized for its role in the massive Julius Nyerere hydropower project in Tanzania. That project demonstrated Egypt's ability to export engineering capacity deep into East Africa. Now imagine that expertise entering Eritrea. Arab contractors could potentially become involved in road construction, dam rehabilitation, irrigation canals, port infrastructure, logistics facilities, and industrial zones, especially around Asab, Massawa, and the Gashbarka agricultural region. But Arab contractors may not be alone. Eritrea is another major Egyptian giant with extensive African operations. The company specializes in energy systems, power transmission, renewable energy, smart infrastructure, and industrial engineering. Inside Eritrea, Elswedi could become central to solar-powered irrigation, rural electrification, desalination systems, power grids, and water pumping infrastructure. And this is critical because Eritrea's biggest development challenge is not necessarily land. It is water management and energy access. That is where Egyptian technical expertise becomes extremely relevant. Egypt has decades of experience in desert agriculture, drip irrigation, groundwater systems, solar pumping, and water-efficient farming. Which means Eritrea may become a testing ground for Egyptian-style desert development model outside Egypt itself. Other potential players, other Egyptian entities that could eventually participate include the Arab Organization for Industrialization, state-backed agricultural engineering firms, Egyptian irrigation technology suppliers, and logistics companies connected to Red Sea trade. If these projects expand successfully, Eritrea could become one of Egypt's largest long-term infrastructure partnership in the Horn of Africa. Now let's talk about the area that may become the most transformative of all, irrigation. Because this is where Egypt has unique advantage. Eritrea has significant agricultural potential, but much of that potential remains underdeveloped due to inconsistent rainfall, weak water infrastructure, limited mechanized irrigation, and insufficient energy systems. This creates a major opportunity. especially if Egypt includes integrated agricultural infrastructure. The Gashbarka region could become the centerpiece. This area has fertile land, livestock potential, and room for large-scale mechanized farming. Possible projects include center pivot irrigation, solar-powered boreholes, groundwater management systems, grain production, livestock water systems, and export-oriented agriculture. Egyptian engineers already have experience in implementing similar projects in Sudan and Uganda. Now that expertise could move into Eritrea. The Massawa Agricultural Corridor. The coastal areas around Massawa could also become highly strategic. Why? Because this is where Egypt's expertise in desalination and greenhouse farming could become valuable. Potential projects include solar desalination plants, greenhouse agriculture, fisheries processing, cold storage facilities, and export farming linked directly to Red Sea shipping routes. This would not only improve food production, it could create an entirely new export economy. Many analysts increasingly believe Asab could eventually evolve into a major logistics and industrial hub. If Egyptian firms become deeply involved, projects could include free trade zones, industrial parks, warehouse systems, fuel storage, fisheries infrastructure, agricultural processing, and transport corridors. And remember, Egypt is not entering Eritrea only for symbolic reasons. This is likely part of a major Red Sea strategy. The Red Sea is becoming one of the most competitive geopolitical zones in the world. Every major regional power wants influence there. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, China, the United States, even Russia has explored military access around the region. And now Egypt appears to be accelerating its own long-term positioning. But unlike some external actors, Egypt brings something unique: engineering capacity directly connected to Africa infrastructure development. This allows Cairo to combine diplomacy, economic investment, infrastructure, and strategic influence. In many ways, Eritrea offers Egypt an opportunity to build a stable long-term foothold near the Bab el-Mandeb corridor. And if projects begin moving quickly after August, this could signal that Cairo wants to establish factors on the ground before regional competition intensifies further. There is also another dimension: food security. Egypt faces increasing pressure from population growth, water constraints, and rising food demand. Regional agricultural partnership may therefore become more important in the future. Eritrea's underdeveloped agricultural zone could eventually become linked to wider Red Sea food supply networks, especially if Gulf financing enters the picture. Because once Gulf investors see ports, roads, irrigation, and energy systems developing together, capital usually follows. The next few months could become extremely important. If Egyptian technical teams arrive in July as expected, their first task will likely include surveying infrastructure needs, identifying priority regions, evaluating water systems, assessing logistics corridors, and coordinating implementation schedules. Then, if implementation phase begins in August, the earliest visible projects may include solar installations, water systems, road rehabilitation, agricultural pilot projects, or logistics infrastructure. When the Egyptian state-backed engineering institutions fully enter Eritrea, the country could experience its biggest infrastructure transformation in decades. Especially if projects expand simultaneously across ports, irrigation, agriculture, energy, and transport. This could also reshape regional trade patterns. A more connected Eritrea could eventually compete more aggressively for Red Sea shipping, logistics services, industrial investment, and agricultural exports. And that would affect the balance of power across the entire Horn of Africa. For years, Eritrea remained one of the least economically developed but most strategically located countries in Africa. Now that may be changing. Egypt's growing engagement suggests Cairo sees Eritrea not just as political ally, but as a long-term strategic investment. The arrival of Egyptian technical teams in July, followed by possible implementation beginning in August, could mark the beginning of a completely new phase in Eritrea's economic development. And if companies like Arab contractors and Elsewedi Electric become deeply involved, the impact could extend far beyond Eritrea itself. It could reshape the Red Sea, the Horn of Africa logistics, regional agriculture, and Egypt's role across East Africa. The question now is not whether Egypt is entering Eritrea. The real question is how big is Cairo's vision for the Red Sea and how far is it willing to go? The Red Sea and the shifting power dynamics transforming the Horn of Africa. We are entering a period where infrastructure, ports, water, and energy projects will increasingly shape global politics, especially across Africa and the Red Sea.
ክብራ ሰማዕትና ብናይሎም መዓልቲ መደባትና ዓጊብኩም ክትኮኑ ተስፋ አገብር
وطاب حارنا